Hey everybody, this is Mr. Cannon back again with the next senior project screencast in our series. This time we are talking about the presentation. There's a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it, so let's go, buckle up. So what is the presentation? Well, it is the culminating experience of a senior project journey. So every senior does their senior project, and then during celebration days at the end of the year, every senior project student gets the opportunity to present their project to the school and to the community, to friends, to family, students, community members. It's a great few days of celebrating all the hard work and cool stuff that seniors have done. But in terms of what that means for the specific presentation assignment, here's the stuff that you need to know. It is one of the last things to do. In fact, it very well could be the last thing that you do. If you look at all the quarter four assignments and then look at the presentation itself, you may actually find that you've done all of the quarter four assignments except for this. And so passing your presentation really is the final step in the senior project journey. It certainly can be. And so students obviously feel a lot of pressure as a result of that. But with our help and hard work and paying attention to all of the requirements for the presentation, you'll be very, very successful. So in terms of the requirements for the presentation, there are a lot of them, and I cannot stress enough that you should consult the rubric for the presentation as you go through it every step of the way. And while I'm not going to talk about every single thing on this list, there are a few things that I really do need to speak to. Number one is the length of the presentations. Presentations are expected to be a minimum of 17 minutes in length and a maximum of 20 minutes in length. And for some students, that can be really hard to get up to 17. For other students, it could be pretty tough to be under 20. And so I can't emphasize enough how important it is to practice your presentation ahead of time. In fact, that's a dedicated assignment, which I'll speak about later. But you should really practice your presentation several times so as to sort of hone in on that 17 to 20 minute window. Now, the 17 to 20 minute length is for the entire presentation beginning to end, not including the audience questions afterwards. But of that, only 12 minutes are direct speaking to the audience. You're only required to speak 12 minutes to the audience. And that's basically because if you choose to use a video for some aspect of your presentation, either because it's part of what you did or because it relates to what you did or because it was helpful in your research, any videos that you include cannot exceed 5 minutes, okay? So you can't get away with talking for 2 minutes and then giving a 15-minute video. That's not gonna work. All right, in terms of technology to include, most kids use Google Slides, but you don't have to. And then these sorts of things are just things that you should include in your presentation, including thoroughly explaining your AOK. And again, all these things are on the rubric, so really it's important to consult the rubric. The first thing on this list, as we continue with the requirements, is to reflect on the entire senior project journey. So if you remember, you had to do a project commitment in quarter two. In quarter three, you had to do an AOK check of progress to show that you were progressing on your AOK. And in quarter four, you really have to reflect on the whole process, including the reflection on the AOK. And that really is part of the AOK process. And so there are specific things in the presentation rubric that require you to reflect on the entire process. We're also, most of the rest of these are just things that need to be included. There is going to be a section for audience questions. We'll talk about, I guess we'll talk about that now. After you conclude your presentation, you can open it up to the audience to ask questions. That is not considered part of your 17 to 20 minutes, but it is a nice way to engage with the audience. Also, there's something called a takeaway piece, or TAP, and I'll talk about that next. One last thing before we move on to that slide, though, is that you should know that you need to upload your presentation to the quarter four senior project folder. All right, so just make sure that the presentation itself, whether it's a slideshow, a Prezi, or whatever, is in that Q4 folder for your senior project mentor to see and to grade. All right, we're going to talk about the takeaway piece, or the TAP. What the takeaway piece is it's an object, a trinket, something that the audience can take with them, something you can give to them that either serves as a nice token of attendance or something really cool related to your project. So, for example, let's just say you decided that you wanted to record a song. And so you record that song and you make little MP3s and you put them on flash drives. And then if kids want to take the song with them, they can take the song with them, that sort of thing. It's a product to be given to the audience for the 2018 and 19 school year and presumably beyond. The takeaway piece is not a mandatory component of the presentation, but it is encouraged. There's nothing on the rubric that requires it, but we do give an award away for it. And so you should consider that. We give an award during senior awards night for best takeaway piece. So if that's something you're interested in. When you do it, just know that if you do create a takeaway piece, 25 is a nice round number. You'll probably have more than 25 people in your audience, but obviously we're not looking for kids to break the bank on getting, 50, 60, 70 takeaway pieces. Okay. Got to be something the audience can take with them, relevant, meaningful to the audience, and then connects to your project. And if you think it's just something that people will throw away when they're done, it's probably not a good idea, probably not worth including. Okay. And like I said, it's not mandatory. All right. In terms of the presentation format, there is no one right way to do it, but we do have some samples online for you to look at. And if you're just trying to figure out how to do it, we recommend the beginning, middle, end example. So in the beginning, you sort of you open it up, you talk about yourself, why you picked this topic, explain what the EQ and sub-EQs are, and let the audience know what it is that they're going to be seeing. In the middle, you really do start talking about diving into the project, your research, the role of your OE, what your AOK was start to finish, relating your AOK to your EQ and your sub-EQs. That's a really, really important piece to this. And then sort of as you get to the end, you want to make sure you revisit your EQs and answer them, believe it or not. If you take a look at the rubric, and again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to consult the rubric for the presentation. But if you do, you will see that answering the essential question and sub-EQs is actually an expectation of the presentation. So you want to make sure you do that before the end. And then, of course, some reflection on the entire process. If you have a takeaway piece, explain it. You should absolutely, definitely have a works cited page. So that you are referencing all of the things that didn't just go into your project, but also into the presentation. Thank the people who need thanking, any sort of closing thought, and then answering questions. Basically, if you follow that format, you should be pretty good. All right, practicing. It really is important to practice. In fact, it's so important, and we think it's so helpful that we actually require you to do at least one during your senior project meeting times with the other students that you share a mentor with. Okay, so we call that the practice presentation. You are required to give the presentation at least to your senior project mentor. Ideally, there are other seniors in the room that can offer you feedback. If you don't give a practice presentation, that's considered failing that assignment, which means you fail Q4. Now, that could mean that you have to do senior project during summer school, which nobody wants. But it might also mean that you have to give your practice presentation to a live audience during celebration days and then give your official presentation sometime thereafter. So if you don't give a practice presentation, things get a little bit tricky. So please, make your senior project mentor's life easier, make your own life easier, and do the practice presentation. All right, it is a Q4 assignment, so you definitely have to do it or you'll fail the quarter. It's meant to help you with that presentation and use it as an opportunity to get feedback. Okay, if you still have questions, talk to your mentor, go to the study hall room, talk to me, Mr. Cannon, signing off on the senior project presentation screencast.